Salve omnes, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be going through Caesar Book 5, chapters 38 and 39, following the AP Latin syllabus. Before we get started, as ever, let's go through our color coding real quick. Words indicated in red are our subjects. Anything highlighted in green is a verb, and items highlighted in blue are going to be our direct objects. Similarly, anything that you see in bold print is the main clause of each sentence, and anything not in bold print is somehow subordinate to that. All right, and so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. Here in chapter 38, we have finally seen the demise of Sabinus, Cotta, and their legion. And so now we are following the victorious Gauls led by Ambiorix. And sure enough, let's get started. Hac victoria sublatus. So this is Ambiorix, as we see. Sublatus, the participle, elated, or something like that, right? Literally, here again we see sub, the prefix sub, meaning up from below, all right? And then latus is just ferro. So, lifted up or elated by, right, this victory, Ambiorix immediately, cum equitatu, with his cavalry, in Aduatukos, into the territory of the Aduatuci, qui, just Aduatuci are the antecedent, errant eus regno finitimi, so who were the neighbors, and then regno here is a dative because finitimi wants a dative, all right, so that's why regno is the dative case here, not the ablative. Eus, of course, just being Ambiorix, they were the neighbors of his kingdom. Proficiscitur, he set out. All right, so he immediately sets out into the territory of the Aduatuci. Moving on down, neque noctem, neque diem intermittit. He does not. So this idea here of intermitted is like to interrupt. So literally, it's something like he does not interrupt the night or the day. So he doesn't stop, right? And the cavalry to follow. All right, peditatum, the cavalry, the infantry, the peditatum, not the equitatum, they're up here with him. The peditatum subsequi, you bet. The infantry to follow, he orders. All right, so Ambiorix is striking while the iron is hot and going to gather allies. And sure enough, let's see how that goes. Two ablative absolutes start off this next sentence. Re demonstrata, with the matter or situation or whatnot having been presented, and with the Aduatuci being concitatis, being stirred up or roused up or excited. Postero die in nervios pervenit. So Ambiorix is not wasting any time. On the next day, right, the day after that, ablative of time when, not time within which, right, time when. On the day after that, he came into the territory of the Nervii, and he encouraged them. Just a brief note, since I'm reading all of these things in the what sounds like the perfect tense, these verbs are in fact in the present tense, but as we've seen before, Caesar will use the present tense with a kind of perfect force because it creates a greater sense of immediacy in the reading. So a reminder, when you're doing the AP, you can either render them as the perfect or as the present. Just pick one and stick with it. As you can see, I'm sticking with the perfect. So on the day after that, he came into the territory of the Nervii and he encouraged them. What did he encourage them to do? So ne, we see that this is a ne clause with subjunctives, and after a verb, let's scroll back up here. After a verb like hortatur, we know that this is an indirect command, right? But the ne indicates that it is a negative command. So he's encouraging them not to do something. So what is he encouraging them not to do? Now, the first thing we see is a whole bunch of genitives and what appear to be either gerunds or gerundives. And we will talk about this in just one second because they're actually different. Liberandi and olkiscendi are not the same thing. But let's go down instead, in order to be able to understand this well, let's go down to occasionem dimittant. This is what he encourages them not to do. Don't miss this opportunity. All right, they, the Nervii, should not miss this opportunity, and then we can swing back up here to the genitives for. All right, so we have an opportunity for, and then here we go with these gerundives and gerunds. Yes, indeed, there's one of each. So liberandi is the gerundive with sui. All right, and this is what we might consider the normal way we see gerundives. So they should not miss this opportunity for liberating themselves for all time, right, in perpetuity. And now in this case, Caesar does something a little different. Olkiskendi, all right, let's highlight Olkiskendi. Olkiskendi is actually a gerund, not a gerundive. So Olkiskendi does not go with sui. Instead, Olkiskendi is reading Romanos, the accusative, as its object. This is not the way we typically see gerunds being deployed. We typically see when a gerund has an object, we see something more like sui liberandi, because the natural passive sense of the gerundive gives us an expression that means something like of themselves to be freed. So in English we say freeing themselves. But in this case, Caesar deploys an object with this gerund. Olkiskendi is the gerund, liberandi is the gerundive. Sense-wise, it reads perfectly fine, right? They should not miss the opportunity for freeing themselves for all time and the opportunity for taking vengeance upon the Romans. For, and then of course, why would we take vengeance upon the Romans? For those injuries which they received, they being the Gauls, the Nervii. All right, and again here we see Caesar doing this this parallel structure with the embedded relative clause inside the prepositional phrase. Very stylistic, very very fancy, but straightforward enough to understand. Ambiorix encourages the Nervii not to miss out on this opportunity. He then goes on to say, and we can see that demonstrat is right here ultimately as our verb. He goes on to say or to show or to provide evidence that 2 legates had been killed, and a great part of the army, don't miss this fourth declension genitive, exercitus, a great part of the army has died. Notice that interfectos esse is passive, but inter esse is not. It's active, so watch out. 2 legates were killed and a great part of the army perished. Continuing on, still the same sentence, he then goes on to say, right, still, you can take it with profitetur, right, he offered or he provided evidence, so he spoke, right. He said that nihil esse negoti, so this is nihil negoti, this standard kind of partitive genitive construction. It is nothing of a business, so it's no great business. It is no great business. If we want to follow up on it is no great business, we're going to go down here to interfici. Okay, that's the verb that comes with it, and oppressam legionem we see is the subject of interfici. So it's no big deal, we might say, for the legion being suddenly attacked, the legion which is wintering with Cicero, right, because quae takes legionem as its antecedent, to be destroyed, to be killed. Okay, so Ambiorix is saying that it's not going to be a big deal. We suddenly overwhelm the legion that's wintering with Cicero, and they can be killed. And he offers himself to this business, or for, we might say in English, for this business. And then adjutorem is standing in apposition to say, right? So he offers himself in this business as an advisor, right? As an aid, something to that effect. He offers himself up as someone who can help. All right, so continuing on. As you can see, Ambiorix was very persuasive. Easily, by means of this oration, he persuaded the Nervii. Notice that Nerviis is dative because persuadet. We're used to that. Continuing on then, and so straight away, right? Itaque confestim, things are happening quickly, and so straight away. Then we have this ablative absolute, dimissis nuntiis, again, because things are happening quickly, with messages or messengers, right? It's not entirely clear if nuntiis is a nuntius, a messenger, or a nuntium, a message. It's not the end of the world. Messages were sent to all these guys, right? You don't have to worry about translating these into English. They're just names of tribes. The Keutrones, the Grudii, the Lewaki, the Pleumoxii, the Geudumni, who, all of whom, right, were under their power. Who's the there here? That's the Nervii. Be sure to be clear, we're not talking about the Aduatuci anymore, who were under Ambiorix's command. Well, they were his neighbors, right? They were the neighbors of his kingdom. These guys, all these tribes, are under the Nervi's imperium. And what did they do straight away after they sent messages to all of their client tribes? They compel them, all right? They kogunt. They compelled, or they ordered, or they commanded. Quam maximus manus possunt. Now, just a quick word here. You'll notice that this entire phrase, including the very obvious verb possunt, has been indicated as the object. That's because we've seen this expression before, most notably back in Caesar Book 1, when the Helvetii were gathering as many things as they could, or when Caesar was ordering up as many soldiers as he could, or marching with the greatest marches that he could, that when we see this quam with a superlative, we know that it means as whatever as possible. So that's where the possunt is. So this whole phrase is existing as the object of kogunt. And the possunt, honestly, is really just there because it kind of finishes out the idea, quam maximus manus possunt. Most of the time, the possunt would be suppressed. It wouldn't be there. It would just be left out, and we would just see quam maximus manus, and it wouldn't bother us at all. They compelled the greatest amount of troops possible. All right, so that's why it is indicated as the object, and we're just going to not worry about it. It is not a relative clause. This quam is quam maximus, the quam that we see with superlative adjectives, indicating as whatever as possible. So, having gathered the greatest forces they can manage, what did they do? Okay, de improviso here, despite the fact that it clearly looks to be a prepositional phrase, and it is, basically just has added adverbial force. All right, literally from the unseen, so therefore unexpectedly. Unexpectedly, to the camp of Cicero, they fly, right? So they flew, they hastened, they hurried. Why were they in such a hurry? Well, we find out in this ablative absolute. Not yet to him. Who's the him? It's Cicero, because he's the last person that we mentioned. Not yet to Cicero had the rumor of the death of Titurius, that's Sabinus, been brought. Okay, so Cicero has not yet heard that Sabinus and his legion have been destroyed. So therefore, the Gauls are in a great hurry to attack Cicero before he finds out. Okay, now that we've come to Cicero's camp, huic quo quacidit, right? To him, that would be, again, Cicero, the person we were just speaking about. To Cicero, it also occurred, quod fuit necesse, a thing which had to occur. This quote, this is not relative, strictly speaking. It's just a factual quote, a thing which necessarily, right? So, it's kind of, it's indicated as the subject, yes. You can read it as a relative if you like. You imagine like an id exists up here. That's fine if you want to. A thing which had to happen. That. And then this is a result clause. Why is this a result clause? Because accidit wants result clauses. Okay, it wants result clauses. Just like fit, fio fieri, wants a result clause. This is the thing that happened. Some soldiers who, and then we have this lovely causa with a genitive, right? We've seen this before, just a standard, for the reason. It's kind of a purpose expression. Who, for the sake of wood gathering and supply gathering, okay, munitions gathering, we'll see this again, by the way, this idea that they've been gathering supplies and munitions, and especially wood, had been sent into the forest, or literally, I read this as if it were passive, had been sent, had departed into the forest, had gone out into the forest. Watch out, because this is active. By the sudden approach of the cavalry, were intercepted. So they were captured. And this will be important later, that some of these men had been captured. Okay, his circumventis. Now this his would be the rest of the soldiers, right? Not the men sent out to gather wood and other supplies, but this would be the soldiers in the camps, having been surrounded by a great band, right? A large band of troops, or of barbarians. All of these guys, right? So the Eberoni, the Nervi, the Aduatuci. So here we have Ambiorix, we have the Aduatuci, his buddies, and we have the Nervii, who also bring along all of their allies, right? And the allies of all of them. Okay, because the Nervii particularly, right, we saw all of their client tribes mentioned above. The Eburones and the Aduatuki presumably brought whatever client tribes they had as well. And sure enough, hey, Caesar mentions it, right? And their clientes. They began to attack the legion, right? Very, very straightforward stuff. Keeping with the theme of very, very straightforward, our men do exactly what they're supposed to do. They swiftly run to arms. They climb the rampart. Notice the asyndeton here. There's no connector because stuff just happens, right? Quickly and almost like automatically, right? The Romans just know what to do. Okay, aegre. We've seen this word before, and not in happy circumstances. With difficulty, the day was sustained. Okay, and once again, I'm continuing to translate as if these were all in the past time, but they are not. They are all present tense, so watch out. Sustentatur. The day is endured with difficulty because, notice there's definitely no quote, relative, or factual or anything, just a straight causal clause. Because all hope the enemy placed in speed. Okay, so the enemy was relying on surprise to win the day for them. And, right, the hostes were adepti hanc victoriam, so they were accustomed, or they were used to, or they were expecting this victory. What do we mean by this victory, right? Hanc victoriam. That would be the same kind of victory that you get with a surprise attack. Also, they were expecting, you might say too, the same kind of victory Ambiorix had promised them. Okay, because we don't know what Ambiorix said to all of these various tribes when he convinced them, but presumably something to the effect of, it's going to be easy. So they came into it expecting to win, and sure enough, they were confident that, right, and then all of this is indirect speech, after confidebant, they were confident that they would be, hey, fore again, we've seen fore before. In this case, because se is plural, we know that fore is futuros esse, not futurum or anything like that. They were confident that they would be victorious in perpetuity, right, forever. All right, in perpetuum is another, like de improviso, we saw up above. It's another prepositional phrase that basically has adverbial force, right? They were confident that they would be winners forever. And believe it or not, that is the end of chapters 38 and 39. Very brief, very straightforward. It's a brief interlude between one battle and we're coming on to the next. So in the next video, we will see just how Cicero and his men react to this sudden and unlooked for attack by the Barbari. Maximus gratias for sticking it out, short as this one may have been. Sadly, they won't all be this short, and we will see you in the next one. Valete!